Rasengan.
One of the most important parts of fighting in the Land of Winds is indeed waiting for Sarada to show the ability of her greatest potential that she has been suppressing, and that's an absolute must. But since the beginning of the Konamaru team being sent to the Land of Winds, with Sarada and also Mitsuki to defeat Matsuri and Ryu, our biggest expectation is, of course, on Mitsuki. The point is, in the Chunin exam between Mitsuki and Shinki, Mitsuki spontaneously surrendered to Shinki. And because of that, in Chapter 21, we naturally had expectations that the rematch between Mitsuki and Ryu would be an epic battle. But it seems reality had something else in mind. Even though the bright side is that Sarada showed something impressive, does that mean Mitsuki was truly a disappointment? Maybe you'll agree with me that Mitsuki has one of the most unique forms of Sage Mode in the entire Naruto and Boruto series. Just from the transformation alone, Mitsuki's Sage Mode looks very different compared to Naruto Jiraiya, Orochimaru, or even Kabuto. But even though we see those differences, do they actually mean anything specific in terms of power? Either it's too fast to conclude that Mitsuki's Sage Mode is too weak, or it's not the time yet. Mitsuki does have a type of Sage Mode that is very different from what we have seen in the past. However, there is a similarity between Mitsuki's Sage Mode and Kabuto's Sage Mode and Orochimaru's other men. The similarity is, when using the power of Sage Mode, there are physical changes that occur, and the identical is the appearance of a horn. On average, if you notice, all the characters resulting from Orochimaru's experiments have changes in their bodies when using the power of Sage Mode. And on average, their body changes are always accompanied by the appearance of a horn. But strangely, Sasuke, who had the curse mark ability from Orochimaru, didn't show any horn transformation at all. The only unique change that happened to Sasuke was that he grew 2 wings that looked like arms. But was Sasuke's case actually a Sage Mode? But anyway, even so, there is something similar from Sasuke in Mitsuki's Sage Mode changes. What is similar is the appearance of a black pattern on the top of the nose. Well, the change in horns on Mitsuki is actually very similar to Kabuto. So, if we conclude, it looks like Mitsuki's Sage Mode is the perfect test result of Orochimaru's research. Perfection has been achieved by Mitsuki because the changes that occur in his body are a combination of the changes in the form of Sasuke, Kabuto, and others. If we learn from the transformation of Naruto's Baryon Mode, we can draw a conclusion that the transformation that gives rise to characteristics such as the creature in Naruto's body means that Naruto's chakra and the creature in his body have mingled and created a new, different energy. So, it is possible that the chakra aura that comes out after Mitsuki enters the perfect Sage Mode phase is the result of a chakra merger between his own chakra and the Senjutsu chakra he utilizes. This is clearly different from the concept of Sage Mode that we have known before. Fukasaku once explained to Naruto that someone who uses Sage Mode must be able to balance 3 energies in his body. There is mental energy, physical energy, and natural energy. All 3 must be balanced in order to master the power of Sage Mode with a perfect form. In Mitsuki's case, he was no longer balancing the 3 energies in his body, but he had fused them within his body. How did he fuse them? Only Orochimaru knows the answer. And even if we compare it to Naruto, his Baryon Mode will sacrifice the soul of Kurama. Well, what if what Mitsuki utilizes is natural energy, just like Naruto utilizes Kurama's energy? Natural energy has no limits and is very different from Kurama's life energy, which of course has limits. Try to imagine, guys, what if Mitsuki still utilizes natural energy, just like Naruto utilizes Kurama's energy? Surely, those who are not physically strong will be more at risk, as well as Naruto, who utilizes the power of Baryon Mode. Every power generated by Baryon Mode will drain Kurama's life energy. Even though it drains Kurama's life energy, Naruto's body still receives the impact. Well, Mitsuki will experience something similar. The full use of the melting energy produced by his Sage Mode will make Mitsuki's body unable to withstand the power released by his Sage Mode. Don't you suspect why every time Mitsuki uses his Sage Mode power, he always ends up with fatal physical damage? The reason is obvious, because the power is too great for his normal body to control. You must be wondering, then why now Mitsuki has managed to use the power of Sage Mode more perfectly, and there is no time limit like the first time? Surely the most reasonable answer is not because he has successfully mastered the power of his Sage Mode. Chances are, he has managed to adjust the use of the power of Sage Mode in his body. So the power we see today is more or less the same as the limiter on kawaki and also on code. Mitsuki limits himself in using the power of H's perfect Sage Mode. In other words, Heia's strength is only 10 or 20% of Hi's full strength. Although specifically 10 or 20 is only an estimate, but certainly this is not complete, because based on some of Mitsuki's fighting moments, especially when he uses his Sage Mode, we don't see any significant increase in strength in Mitsuki's Sage Mode that we have seen in the past. So that means Mitsuki still has the greatest potential that is still hidden from the power of Sage Mode. But how will it be revealed? If Sarada had to sacrifice Yodo's life as an achievement based on what Koji said to awaken Sarada's new power, then what about Mitsuki? Is there something that must be sacrificed? But again, I suspect that this will end the same as Sarada. The meaning is that the power comes if indeed Mitsuki must protect something most valuable in his life. At the moment, we have yet to see something that stirs his emotions and something that he finds most valuable. It could be that when things threaten the safety of some of the most important people like Sarada, Mitsuki could awaken the true power of his Sage Mode. And as a final conclusion, first, as a Sage Mode user who is very different from his ancestors, Mitsuki's Sage Mode becomes a big question mark along with doubts. Moreover, we all know that Sage Mode is something very special power. But the case in Mitsuki, the Sage Mode that is easily used and seems frequent, it becomes something that looks ordinary and does not give an essence like Sage Mode in the Naruto era. And if we compare the analogy with Sarada, then it should be that Mitsuki still has great potential, as proof that the Sage Mode he has is something that is in line with his realization and not as weak as it currently is. And that means then this is something normal if Mitsuki has not fully shown his greatest potential. Because from a slow story, there will be a lot of considerations that must be made before he really becomes strong. Because once again, Sarada herself had to wait several chapters after she awakened her eyes before she could actually activate the power of the eyes. Second, doubting and considering Mitsuki's Sage Mode weak is actually something normal if we look at it based on several scenes that have started from him fighting against Boruto to his fight against Ryu. And finally, regarding how the basis of his Sage Mode ability is, this is something complex. I mean, whether he uses natural chakra or something like that, because based on the various Sage Modes in the Naruto universe, they certainly use unlimited natural chakra. Then what about Mitsuki? If it is the fact that his Sage Mode is based on the source of natural chakra plus Orochimaru's modification, his Sage Mode should be able to surpass his predecessor, even Naruto himself. But anyway, if we compare Mitsuki's Sage Mode with Kabuto's or even Naruto's, honestly, who do you think is stronger? And is Mitsuki's Sage Mode actually something that has a limiter? I really want to hear your thoughts. So thanks for watching. Like and subs. I'm Nim. See you in the next video.